And again, good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Raquel Reddy, Vice President of Community Development here at NCST, and we are kicking off a series of weather-related resiliency training events in partnership with Smart Home America. These events will provide real estate housing developers with an introduction to the Fortified Home Standard, as well as additional information and tools to complete rehabs to standards that better protect and increase the resiliency of single-family housing inventory across the country. And with that, hopefully you found yourself at the right training. Number one, we're going to be doing our training today is on wind-driven rain and high winds. So again, thanks for being here. I'm going to take a moment to introduce everyone that will be participating from our side this morning, including my colleague, Jordan Backstrom, who's our program specialist here at NCST. And along with NCST staff, we also have members of the Smart Home America team with us. First off, just recognizing President of Smart Home America, Julie Shayu Woodard. She is the President and Chief Executive Officer for Smart Home America, and Smart Home America is a nonprofit organization whose work intersects disaster resiliency, policy, and housing and insurance affordability. Along with Julie, we also have Brooke Truxmundo, Planning and Policy Specialist, Candace Wheat, Technical Outreach Specialist, and Graham Green, the Communications Director for Smart Home America. And you'll see some of us come on and off screen throughout the training this morning. A couple just housekeeping things we want to mention to you. We are looking forward to your questions, your Q&As. We do ask that you drop those in the Q&A feature in this webinar. And also know that we are recording these training events. We will have the recording uploaded to NCST's website at the end of the training series. So there'll be a few weeks before you'll see all of the recordings saved from that perspective. And with that, I just want to introduce again Brooke Truxmundo, and we'll begin our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raquel, and thank you so much to the NCST team for helping us facilitate this webinar. As we get started this morning, I know we're in a webinar, but I wanted to ask some questions this morning to get our brains pumping and kind of gauge where we're at. So just kind of to yourself, or if you want to use the raise your hand feature, how many of you or someone you know, like a family member or close friend, have experienced an increase in the cost of your homeowner's insurance over the past few years? Has anyone experienced that? Yep, I see some hand raises. Thank you guys so much. All right. Has anyone over the past few years experienced damage to your home or a family member's home during a severe weather event or a natural disaster? Has anyone experienced that? And raise your hand or just think to yourself, do you think those two things might be related? So we're going to kind of talk about that today and talk about some solutions to those challenges that people across the country are facing. So first up, let's talk about some facts that we know. So a study by CoreLogic has shown that 64% of homes are underinsured by an average of about 24%. So 24% of a $200,000 home is $48,000. And I don't know about you, but I feel like a lot of families in the US do not have an extra $48,000 just lying around to help cover that gap if something were to happen to their home during a severe weather event or natural disaster. So with a debt of almost $50,000, it makes it so much more difficult after a home is damaged or unlivable to make a comeback. And it doesn't just affect homes either, it affects businesses as well. So this same study by CoreLogic has shown that about 40% or 75% of businesses are underinsured by an average of about 40%. And 40% of a $500,000 business is $200,000. So the days and weeks after a natural disaster or severe weather event are crucial. When small businesses experience a loss of this size, they often don't have the means to reopen their doors, which adds to the financial losses of a community. You know, jobs, revenue, and taxes are all lost. So this may come as a surprise, but kind of during those natural disasters and severe weather events, the biggest home insurance claims every year are caused by the loss of a roof covering and water getting into the home, and that's called water intrusion. And during a severe storm, if it has water intrusion, about 90% of that water enters the structure. So, kind of what do we do about this? One of the things we can do are building codes, right? Setting these standards that every home is built to. And this graphic shows how building codes are meant to work. So all of these houses pictured here went through Hurricane Harvey in 2017. And as you can see, the more recent the building code, the better the house fared. At the top left of this picture is a house built in 2017. You can see that it did very well structurally, but you might also notice that all of the roof panels are missing. The roof decking is still in place, but the metal panels that were originally secured to this house are missing. And because of the loss of these roof panels, it's very likely that this home leaked and had that extensive damage inside from water entering through the roof. And so even though it looks good on the outside, insurance might have still declared this home a total loss, despite how well the exterior structure performed. And unfortunately, the house just below it, which was built in 2007, which was built in the year 2000, you can see just the foundation is still there. And so that home was also declared a complete loss. Now, if you look across the bottom at kind of that row of houses and all the different years that they were built, you notice the house that was originally built in 1970 but was rehabbed in 2008 did very well, but the house two doors down that was originally built in 1972 and never updated did not fare very well. So a little bit more about us. Why do we talk about these things? Who are we? We are Smart Home America. We are a 501c3 nonprofit based in Mobile, Alabama, and I personally am based in Detroit, Michigan. And we at Smart Home America believe that informed decisions make a smart home. And so what are those informed decisions? What does that mean? So to us, a smart home does not end up in a landfill after severe weather events. It starts with resilience. So a smart home is built or updated to withstand wind and wind-driven rain. It will survive rising water and fire. It is adequately and affordably assured. It's energy efficient. And then and only then do we worry about the Internet and of Things as a part of home and businesses. And so we at Smart Home America exist to educate everyone that touches a built structure. So this could be the contractors that build it, the insurance agent that covers it, or the policymaker that sets the building code. We work to give you information to educate your clients, your homeowners, and other people in your community, so that way we can all take small steps together towards more sustainable and resilient homes, businesses, and communities overall. So while homeowners, business owners, and consumers are our ultimate targets, we actually focus our outreach and education on those they trust, like you. These are groups of people needed to create more resilient communities. So you are an essential part of community resilience. And how do we do this? Well, through our work, we've found that a community must have a set of building blocks in order to support resilience and sustainability. When a community works to put in place current building codes, they have flood risk ordinances in place, and they implement the fortified construction standards, the foundation for a resilient community is in place. And this leads to the need for funding options to help mitigate and incentivize the community, and these can be put in place by state and local policies. And as a person's home is generally their largest financial investment, using insurance as a means of economic resilience is also key. So one of the things we offer, we're not going to talk about this too much today, but for more on a community level, this is our Resilient Housing Planning Guide, and you can actually scan the QR code to go to our website to download this, and my colleague Graham can also throw a link in the chat for you as well. So the Resilient Housing Planning Guide offers a comprehensive framework to transform how communities approach housing in high-risk areas by integrating pre-disaster planning with post-disaster recovery strategies. The guide equips planning departments with practical tools to break the repetitive cycle of disaster and rebuilding, creating pathways to systematically enhance housing resilience through both policy and construction. And so by implementing this planning process throughout the guide, communities can proactively assess vulnerabilities before disasters while positioning themselves to leverage recovery opportunities after those disasters do occur. And this is relevant for kind of every community throughout the United States because so many states do not have a statewide building code. And if they do, it's really not consistently adopted, maybe throughout that state, but it's definitely not consistent throughout the entire US. Some states only have jurisdictional adoption, and the story remains the same, where a lot of times there is a lack of consistent enforcement. So current and enforced building codes really do make a difference to community resilience, like we saw with those houses that went through Hurricane Harvey. So considering that there are just a few areas in the US do not experience some frequency of severe weather, this graphic, the pink paths are hurricanes, the yellow dots are tornadoes, and the orange dots are wildfires. And as we know, those areas are getting bigger and changing, and more communities are experiencing disasters that maybe they hadn't experienced before. So many places just haven't experienced the bad weather yet. And as you can see with the patchwork of building codes, it can really depend on where you live, whether or not you're going to be able to survive that disaster. And last year in 2024, we had so many billion-dollar disasters, 27 separate billion-dollar weather and climate disasters that impacted the United States in 2024. Winter and storm events, wildfires, droughts, heat waves, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, and other severe weather and hail events. So many areas of the country are impacted with this. So how do we make a difference? How do we make a change? And we do that by influencing the paradigms of recovery. So think of mitigation as your community's long-term protection plan. The traditional model is a disaster happens, we respond, we make sure people are safe, and then we rebuild the houses in the exact same way that they were built before. Then the next disaster comes, they get damaged, we respond, make sure people are safe, and just keep rebuilding back in the same ways. So this cycle keeps perpetuating itself. And this can lead to a huge cost for the community. So if we switch to a more intentional resilience plan, this now means that when a disaster happens, communities can rebound faster. It leads to dramatic savings in recovery and rebuilding costs, and neighborhoods stay intact, leading to more resilient communities. Studies have shown that for every $1 spent on pre-disaster resilience and mitigation, you can save $6 to $13 after the disaster. So when you think about it, preparation beats reaction every single time. Intentional resilience does not have to cost substantially more than standard construction. Existing materials and methods can be used. And Candace is going to go into a lot of detail about what those materials and methods are. But for the introduction here, I'm just going to kind of go over where do they come from. So we partner with the folks at IBHS, or the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, and they have been researching damage to roofs and kind of what caused it for over 20 years. So in this picture down at the bottom there, this is IBHS's research facility in South Carolina, and down at the bottom, that's their roof farm. So they actually have all those different roofs. You can see the different types of shingle types and roof coverings, and they just kind of leave them out to the weather and study how does weather over time, over a period of years, affect the health and conditions of roofs. And then towards the top of this picture, I have a cool video next that I'll show you, but that is their actual lab and research facility. You can see all of those fans lined up, and this is basically where they crash test buildings. And so This is where all of the magic happens. IBHS focuses their efforts on 4 different types of damage, which we have displayed here: wind, hail, wind-driven rain, and wildfire. So now I have a video coming up that's going to kind of show the research center. So like I mentioned, it features this 6-story test chamber, which is the size of an airplane hangar, has more than 105 fans, and it's capable of generating 130-mile-an-hour winds and up to 8 inches of rain an hour. So they conduct extensive research in hail, inventing new ways to generate realistic hail. And on wildfire, they're the only known facility able to test how embers interact with the built environment. They also study water intrusion through the roof and how to seal it out. And they study the effects of wind on homes, learning how to reduce loss. Their research extends to the field, where they go out after disasters to learn what happened and how it affected the buildings. And they also study the effects of severe weather on commercial structures as well as homes. So at full scale, they can recreate severe weather so that scientists can see what feels first and understand what we can do to protect the investment of homeowners. So severe weather disrupts lives, it displaces families, and drives financial loss. So IBHS brings together the science and expertise to reduce, and in some cases, eliminate costly risks. So let's talk a little bit about what IBHS has found. So with the extensive research that they do in the lab and the data gathered from the field, we can accurately predict the damage that will be seen if we know the wind speed a location has seen. And it kind of all starts with the roof cover, the soffits, and the fascia, and the compounds as the wind speeds increase. And then the wall cover is affected. The roof sheathing gets blown off, which then can compromise the roof structure. And obviously, if the winds are high enough, that can lead to a total collapse of the home. And just to really emphasize how accurate this research in the lab is, I have some photos here kind of comparing the damage seen in the lab to damage seen in the field. So again, at that lowest wind level, the main things affected are the roof cover, the soffits, and the fascia of the roof. At the next level, we have the wall cover and siding that's affected. You can see very similar damage between the lab and the field. With the next level of wind speed, the roof sheathing and the roof structure is affected. In the lab picture, the entire top of the roof is coming off. And then at the highest wind speeds, we see a total collapse of the home as well. And so another example here, Candace is going to talk about this in more detail, but we're going to play a little bit of I Spy. On the picture on the left, I'm sure you can see the white car in the middle of the structure there that's been damaged during a tornado. Now, if you look really closely, you'll notice that the garage door opening is actually behind the car over on the right side. But you can see that that wall that we're looking at has completely been blown out. Now, this was in Chattanooga, Tennessee during an EF3 tornado. But where this house was located, it actually only experienced wind speeds of an EF1 or an EF2 tornado, but it still looks like it got hit with those highest wind speeds. And that's because that garage door failed and it blew into the garage, causing that wall to essentially explode out. So kind of summarizing, what do we know? Newer roofs do better. Homes built to newer codes also did better. Low slip roofs are vulnerable, so the installation of that roofing is key. Garage doors are damage amplifiers, so they cause more damage than that home might have experienced without a garage door or if the garage door had stayed intact. And sealed roof decks limit water intrusion damage. So kind of how do we put all of this knowledge into practice? And IBHS has done that through developing their Fortified program. So there are 3 different types of the Fortified program. There's Fortified Home, Fortified Multifamily, and Fortified Commercial. We're going to focus mostly on Fortified Home today, but the standards work really well throughout all of them, because I know lots of folks on the call work both in single family and multifamily development. So just a little bit more about Fortified and kind of how it's been growing across the country. This graph provides a strong visual depicting that when the right nudges are identified and properly implemented, growth can be exponential. You can see how the numbers of fortified designations have dramatically increased over the last few years, with the greatest rate of growth occurring since 2020. Designations have increased from 25,000 in 2020 and have now topped 70,000. And how do we get this growth? How do we get people to adopt these construction standards? There are some incentives that we have identified that help show this. So one of the big things is insurance discounts. Because these standards are proven to help structures weather storms better, a lot of insurance companies are more likely to want to write that structure at all or give a more affordable rate. State and local governments can also offer tax credits or deductions for fortified homes or structures, providing these through mitigation credits and grant programs. And we have a website there, and my colleague Graham will also drop the link in the chat if you'd like to learn a little bit more about that. And what I think the most successful incentive that we've seen in our work is a grant program. There's a growing amount of public money supporting fortified and helping homeowners reach that fortified designation. But more importantly, these dollars bring awareness to the program and grow the infrastructure. So right now there are grant programs in Alabama, North Carolina, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, and there are several more states with grant programs that are coming online soon, and several other states that we don't have in the picture yet that are currently discussing legislation about creating their own grant programs. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas, if anyone is in that 6-state jurisdiction area, has a program for homeowners in New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi that they will help support a fortified roof. And so this is really what has supported the momentum, carrying us to more than 70,000 fortified designations now nationwide. And obviously, we can't do this alone. We have so many partners. Alabama's Department of Insurance was one of the first to use fortified as the standard for resilient construction and re-roofing. And more than 10 years later, it has truly become the national standard. Fortified designations are now specifically listed as requirements for grants issued through a number of state and federal agencies. It's a reimbursable expense in HUD's $4.8 billion Green and Resilient Retrofit Program, and has long been an eligible expense in SBA's post-disaster loan program. So it's gaining this level of acceptance because it offers benefits to homeowners and their communities. We also have a lot of nonprofit and NGO partners as well. We've connected with 14 NGOs and have 12 of those actively utilizing or preparing to utilize fortified in their re-roofing and construction schedule as well. So this just goes to show that if you are a nonprofit developer, these construction standards are not so either labor or financially intensive that they're not accessible for affordable housing. So just to kind of summarize, building codes are effective when they are enforced. But the fortified standards go beyond a traditional building code, right? Those historical building codes were focused on life safety, right? They wanted the structure to be able to stay intact long enough for a family to be able to escape the home, which is absolutely super important. But adding property protection to this formula helps protect that family's investment in their home. So it protects both human life and the property as well. So the goal is for the building to survive a severe event and to be reusable or relivable quickly by protecting the interior of the building and its contents. So now we're going to do a quick little pop quiz through a poll in the webinar just to make sure everybody is still awake. And then I'm going to hand it over to Candice, who's going to go into more of the technical details about what these fortified construction standards really are. Excellent. So our poll, and again, just a softball question, make sure everybody's awake and still with us. Building codes are well enforced across the United States. True or false? We'll give folks a minute or two to answer this. And as we're answering the poll, just a quick reminder, if you do have any questions that come up, please throw that in the Q&A section. Graham and I will be working to answer those, and then we'll also have some time at the end to talk them through as well. All right, Jordan, are we good to reveal the results of the poll? Awesome. So, yep, about 78% of you got this spot on. Building codes are usually not well enforced across most of the United States, which kind of makes Fortified this critical solution to help protecting our homes and making insurance affordable. And with that, I will pass it over to Candace.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for joining us. We're going to get into more of the technical piece of what Fortified is at this point. So Fortified is that lab tested with real world results. Since 2018, nearly 90% of the fortified homes have seen at least one landfall storm. More than 50 of the events that occurred during that span have losses that were measured into the billions of dollars. Fortified has proven to reduce both frequency and the severity of loss. Moore, Oklahoma was hit with an EF5 tornado back in May of 2013. What you're looking at is the damage from those highest winds. We can't prevent all of that damage, but as we kind of scroll down and we get to the outer areas of it, what you're seeing from the EF0, 1, and 2 winds, those things are addressed with specifically with Fortified, and we can make a difference here. We can prevent a lot of this damage. When Moore, Oklahoma, when that tornado hit and it touched down, the total path of the tornado was around 17 miles. Of that 17 miles, the total square miles touched by the EF5 wind speeds was 0.0012 square miles. So, you know, a lot of the square miles that were touched by this tornado, again, are things that are addressed with Fortified that could have been prevented. We know that using Fortified building standards narrows that path of destruction when a tornado strikes a community. When all structures meet some level of Fortified designation, several benefits occur. Debris fields from the EF0, 1, and 2 tornadoes can be eliminated. Damage to buildings during higher intensities 2 and 3 can be reduced. And for the EF4 and 5 tornadoes, you know, a safe room or community shelters, that becomes essential. We always encourage anyone who is in the path of a tornado, regardless of the wind speeds, to seek that shelter. But you know, with the extent of the damage that comes with an EF4 and 5, a building's survival cannot be guaranteed. So that's where those safe rooms and shelters become extremely important. So looking at the graph that is on the screen here, the tornado damage assessment that you see, we can see that the practical impact, the number of green dots that are showing on the map represent homes with primarily shingle loss. This damage could have been prevented had Fortified standards been in place. And the Fortified standards are going to include documented proper roof installation according to the manufacturer's specification. Since tornadoes rarely occur in dry weather events, they typically involve some sort of rain. This means houses that lost shingles also suffered water intrusion damage. The sealed roof deck that is a part of the Fortified standards could have helped avoid this. The consequences is significant to the home, where it may have suffered minor damage and been livable directly after the weather event. It now has become uninhabitable due to the water intrusion. So let's see, 46% of single-family homes 46% of single-family home damage modes are addressed by some element of the Fortified, the system that we're going to talk about. So you've heard that word Fortified now several times. What is a Fortified home? Fortified is a voluntary program, so no one is required to build to it, but it's a voluntary program. It is verified by a third-party independent individual who is going to go out and make sure that the standards are being adhered to by the roofer or the contractor who is working on that home. There are 2 standards. One is hurricane and one is high wind. Of course, the hurricane is going to be for more of the coastal areas, and then the high wind is inland, where, you know, more frequently seen the straight line winds, the tornadoes, that sort of thing. This is a key for you guys to remember. There are 3 levels to Fortified. Those are roof, silver, and gold. Each fortified level builds on the one before that. Therefore, all fortified homes start with that fortified roof. So if you build your home to the fortified gold standards, it's going to include everything that falls in the silver level as well as the roof. And then it kind of steps back from there. If you get the silver designation, it's going to have the roof in the silver. If you live along the coast, you're going to be, again, under that fortified home hurricane program. It's very similar to the fortified home high wind program. A fortified roof will keep the roof on and the water out. When you go to fortified silver, this is where we're going to address the damage amplifiers. So you still have the fortified roof, and you're adding the strengthening of the gable walls, a wind-rated garage door, securing the chimney to the house, anchoring your porches and carports to make sure that they are securely tied to your home. And for hurricanes, you must provide opening protection against debris impact with something like a hurricane shutter. And then for the gold, we're looking at adding that continuous load path into the mix of things. That is going to make sure that the house stays tied together. And I've got a really cool video that I'm going to show you about how the continuous load path works here in just a bit. So I'm not going to go into great detail with you guys on that in this moment. But we're looking at that continuous load path and then protecting the openings against the high pressure. Again, this is going to be for the fortified hurricane. There is an optional, the keyword there being optional, hail supplement that adds impact rated roof covering. And I'm going to talk in more detail about the hail supplement in slides a little bit further on in the presentation. So for the fortified home high wind, that is going to be very similar to the hurricane. You'll notice as we're going through here, it's very similar. The high wind is going to address that roof system. We're going to look at the gables, attached structures, garage door, and chimney. Opening protection is not addressed in the high wind. You know, if a tornado is coming through, the first thing that someone is going to do is not run out and close shutters on their house. We're trying to get into that safe spot in the home. And then with the high wind, we're also going to look at that continuous load path. The hurricane is going to require the pressure rating for the opening, but it is not a requirement with the high wind. So we're going to start off with the fortified roof. There are 3 keys that basically cover on the fortified roof. Those things are, we're going to nail that roof down, we're going to seal it up and lock it in. So nailing the roof down is going to look at a tighter nailing pattern on the roof. And we're also going to use what's called an 8D ring shank nail instead of a smooth or a common nail. We're going to use that 8D ring shank nail. And we're going to tighten that pattern, the distance between the nails as they're being put into the roof deck. The ring shank nail and tightening that pattern have shown to increase the uplift resistance of your roof deck by 100%. So you're giving yourself a greater chance to keep that roof on. You know, the roof is the most important piece of that envelope of your home, because if that roof comes off, then you've got all that water. If the entire roof comes off, there's nothing to stop that water from coming into the attic. So I talked about those ring shank nails, but I'm going to give you a visual of the ring shank nail. You'll notice that there are grooves. If you look at the picture on the left, you'll notice that there are grooves in there, and those grooves are what actually help to strengthen the connection. And it's also going to penetrate deeper into the framing member to, again, add to that uplift resistance. So you can kind of see a visual here of that deeper into the framing members. So the next piece of the roof's durability is going to be, well, actually, before I get to the next piece, let's look at this picture. You can see where on the homes that you're seeing here, just those common nails were used instead of the ring shank nail. And you can see where that roof decking is starting to come up on both of these pictures. The second key is going to be the roof, to the roof durability is going to be keeping the water out or sealing it up. I'm going to show you a video now. This video is of a duplex that was built and placed inside of the research facility that Brooke talked about just a few minutes ago. 60% of the 8 inches of per hour of rain that's hitting this house, which is about 7 bathtubs, is getting in through the roof on the right-hand side. You'll notice on the left-hand side as this video progresses that there is black tape. That's actually bitumen tape that is over the seams of the home. If covering that home with roughly $500 worth of tape keeps out 90% of the water, it's kind of a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you put that tape on there? Use the the criteria. Excuse me, sorry. In August of 21, that's when this test was conducted. It focuses on that water intrusion. The single-story duplex residential building was built in the testing facility, and it was subjected to the test. It's spinning on that railroad train cart so that each side gets hit equally with the wind and the rain. You'll notice as the video progresses here, we've got lots of water that's coming through on that unsealed side. All that water coming through has led to what you see in the video right now. The insulation got wet, it dropped through into the home itself. That right side of the duplex is unlivable. If you live in an area where humidity is high, you know that it doesn't take very long after a storm and water getting into the home for the mold and mildew to start. On the left side, where the sealed roof deck was, you'll notice that there's not a whole lot. If you're paying attention, you'll see a little bit of the insulation on the bottom left-hand side of the video there, and that's from where they opened up the roof hatch, and when they did, the insulation that had blown around came through. But after the test was stopped, you could walk into this side. You could sit on the couch. You could sit on the bed. There was no real damage on the inside of it, so that made this home livable almost immediately after the storm had passed. So the family evacuates. They have somewhere to come back to. They have a home to live in. They may not have water, they may not have power, but they have a place to live, and they have somewhere to stay as the community starts to rebuild. So after the test was complete, an independent adjuster was brought in to determine the damage to each side of the duplex. These damage estimates show that a sealed roof deck, and again, keep in mind, that left side, the only difference in these two is that tape that you see on the left side on that sealed roof deck. So about $500 worth of tape made a huge difference in the cost. The left side, we have the damage estimate a little over $6,000, and these numbers have been inflated to 2020 cost. The one on the right side damage estimate was a little over $19,000. That doesn't take into account the belongings that were inside, the fact that the family that would have lived in that side of the duplex doesn't have anywhere to stay now. They don't have, they're having to replace all of their belongings. Also the cost of finding somewhere else to stay. Those expenses were not included in that figure. So let's talk a little bit more about the ways to make the roof deck, to seal off that roof deck. There are 4 different ways that you can do this. First one is going to be an underlayment. It should be installed with 4 inches horizontally overlapped at the top and bottom, and 6-inch end laps at the top of the roof. The underlayment should fold 6 inches over the ridge on both sides. The nail should be spaced every 6 inches on center at all horizontal laps and end laps, every 12 inches on center, both horizontally and vertically in between laps, or in accordance to the manufacturer's requirements, whichever one is more stringent. Cap nails should be held off the edge by 4 inches to allow the drip edge to be installed over a smooth surface. We're going to talk about the drip edge here in just a second, but the drip edge will not hold the under. The drip edge will hold the underlayment in place. The underlayment products come in different widths, and the fasteners must be installed at a maximum of 12 inches on center, which means that there may be more than 2 rows of fasteners in between the course. These are some of the types of the tape that can be used. The modified bitumen tape, and I always have trouble with this pronouncing this word, the butyl, and there are acrylic tapes. You can kind of look at the chart there that is going to kind of give you some differences. You know, you can see the service temperature range. There's some that are a little more flexible. They all give you that waterproof, but depending on where you live, you may need to take that into consideration, which type of tape would be used. Fortified is product agnostic though, meaning that the products that a lot of people are already using, they may be appropriate for meeting the Fortified standards. As long as the products have been tested and meet those Fortified requirements, then they are acceptable. Again, product agnostic. The second option is going to be a fully adhered membrane. You've probably passed by a house that is being built and saw the entire roof, saw that plastic looking on the top of the entire roof. That's going to be the fully adhered membrane. This is a simpler method. It is more expensive though. The entire roof is covered with that membrane. Because it's fully covered, the roof can also be used, because it fully covers the roof. It can also be, this method can be used on tongue and groove and dimensional lumber. It is recommended if you're putting an asphalt shingle over the fully adhered membrane that you use a synthetic underlayment as a bond break. And that's it's been seen to where those shingles will stick to that membrane and make it difficult to get off. So that bond break kind of helps out a little bit with that. The fastening pattern of the bond break is not as stringent as it is with the roof deck tape. Without it, there may be issues when when you're re-roofing. The advantage of this system is the ease of installation and complete coverage, allowing it again to be used on that tongue and groove. The disadvantages of this system is that it usually is more expensive. It may pose challenges when it comes to time to re-roof, and it cannot be used with all products. For example, cedar shingles can't be laid over a fully adhered membrane. And there's a picture of the fully adhered membrane on a house. So, and I should have been clicking through on those. My apologies. The last method that we're gonna talk about right now is going to be that 2-layer of organic 30-pound felt. The application requires a specific nailing pattern, and the layers need to fully overlap one another. The advantages of this system is that it has complete coverage, again allowing for that tongue and groove roof, and it's less expensive than a fully adhered membrane. The disadvantage of this method though is the training that's needed, because there is that specific nailing pattern that has to be very closely adhered to. The underlayment must be attached with the angular ring or deformed shank nails to the roof. There's a significant length that they need to penetrate into the roof sheathing, and a minimum 1-inch diameter metal or plastic cap needs to be on there. Staples cannot be used. Metal caps and nails or metal cap ends are required for ultimate design wind pressures of 160 miles an hour or greater. So that's going to be more along the coastal areas for that. For homes that are within 3,000 feet of a saltwater shoreline, the fasteners that are going in must meet the corrosion protection requirements. So the absolute last that I'm going to talk about is going to be the spray foam adhesive. This is the spray foam adhesive used must be tested and evaluated in accordance with either ASTM E330, TAS 20294, which is these are tests that are done that show that the products have met the uplift and the water resistant requirements for the Fortified program. A lot of times, we'll see where maybe your home has recently been re-roofed, but we don't have the documentation that we need to be able to give you a new roof designation, because that evaluator that we're going to talk about here in a few was not involved in the process. This is kind of one way for us to get into your attic. You put this spray foam in there. It's going to seal off those seams. It's going to add the needed uplift resistance, and it will allow for your home to get a designation. Now, it wouldn't be a new roof designation, but it would allow for a designation to be given to the home. So Brooke did a great job of talking about building codes earlier, and I'd like to add one more thing to the information that she gave. Even if the building codes are well enforced, roofs often are not addressed when the building codes are being enforced. These houses that you see on the screen now, they went through Hurricane Michael in Mexico Beach, Florida in 2018. You can see these houses did relatively well if you kind of look at the structures themselves. But as we click in here, we're going to see that the homes had roof damage and there was water intrusion into the homes themselves. The homeowners were probably displaced from their homes, even though the home itself on the outside looks fairly well. They were probably displaced from their homes while the repairs were being made. And again, to kind of reiterate what Brooke said a few minutes ago, with up to 90% of insurance claims annually being related to the roof, the largest payout by insurance companies It's going to be from that water intrusion. The things that we just talked about with the sealed roof deck, those on these homes would have made a huge impact. The families again would have been able to stay in these homes. They would have been able to help their neighbors out. And any of us who have been through any kind of event, whether it's a tornado, a hurricane, wildfire, we know that when that event happens, one of the most important things that we need is immediate support and immediate help. So these homeowners would have been able to assist their neighbors had they had the sealed roof decks on their homes. So we're going to jump over to another pop quiz now. And once we get this pop quiz going and answered, we're going to take a short break. If you need to grab something to drink or take a restroom break, we're going to take a 5-minute break. But Jordan, if you wouldn't mind popping that pop quiz out for us. So here's your next pop quiz. What are the 3 designation types for the Fortified program? Are they bronze, roof, and gold, roof, silver, and gold, or red, yellow, and green? Which of these 3 options are the correct names for the different designation levels for the Fortified system? So I would say we are ready to go ahead and reveal those answers. Correct with the roof, silver, and gold. That is the correct answer. Bronze at one point, and that one's kind of a little bit tricky, but when Fortified was first released, they did call it bronze. But the roof on that answer makes it incorrect because we now call it the roof level, and then red, yellow, and green. That one is a good guess, but not quite. So what we're going to do now, it is 9:49. So let's say we come back at, we'll call it 9:55. We'll come back from this short break, and we'll pick up and continue on with the next slides.
And Candace, for those on the East Coast, that's going to be 10:55. So just so everybody knows. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I am in Mobile, Alabama, so my brain is on Central Time. Just take 5 minutes from now, whatever now your time is right now, and come back.
Thanks.
So we are going to go ahead and get started again. It's 55 after the hour. So the last piece of the roof that we're going to talk about is going to be um, the drip edge. It's the final and big piece to the key for the roof's durability. So a drip edge is a type of metal flashing that is installed on the edges of the roof to help control the flow of water away from the fascia and to protect the underlying roof components. The drip edge is located on the perimeter, which is the most vulnerable area of a roof. That is where the roof experiences the highest wind pressures on those edges. In the fortified standards, the drip edge holds the sealed roof deck in place and serves as the anchoring point at the edge of the roof for the covering system. A drip edge is required in current versions of the International Residential Code or the IRC. However, its use may not be required or regularly enforced locally. And even if it is not required, even if it is not required in your area, it can still be used. As you can see here, this poorly attached drip edge led to the roof covering being peeled back off the roof. I want you to notice the nails at the end of the drip edge down here at the bottom, how they are spaced there on the edge, and the distance of the nails in the drip edge as we go further down. This outcome can be prevented. The drip edge should be nailed in a staggering pattern, and the nailing pattern is tighter than what you saw on the previous slide. The sections can still overlap. Sections should be overlapped at least 3 inches and be fastened with a minimum of 2 nails on the overlap. So you'll notice that stagger pattern here, and then you'll see where there are 2 nails in place to help secure that drip edge and keeping it from coming off. When using an asphalt shingle on the roof, the shingle along the perimeter of the roof must be adhered to the roof. There are 2 ways to achieve this. The first option is to add at least an 8-inch wide strip of compatible flashing cement for the first course of the shingles to be laid on. The second is a fully adhered starter strip of at least 8 inches in width. It is not acceptable to lay the first course of shingles directly over the felt or membrane. So the load path of the roof is covered and addressed when the starter strips and the roof shingles are put into place using those fortified standards. A sealed roof deck is added and the drip edge is properly insured. That leads to the load path of the roof the roof covering being complete. Asphalt shingles are the most common roof covering. Class F and Class H wind resistance are both acceptable in the fortified program. Most of the time, when you're you can easily find this information. Which this picture, sorry about that. This picture doesn't do a great job of you being able to read it, but it's listed on the packaging for the shingles. Other roof type coverings may also be installed. They must be installed to resist the design uplift pressures of the site. The roof slope should also be taken into consideration when making the decision on what type of roof covering to use. It's important to verify that the materials you are installing anywhere on your home have been tested to determine how well they will stand up to the wind. If you have a question about a certain product's testing, you can always check with the Fortified Evaluator, which we're going to go into great detail here in a few slides. But if you have a question about it, that's part of what the evaluator is there for, to help you answer those questions. So I mentioned a hail supplement earlier, and that hail supplement being optional. It's not a requirement, obviously, if it's optional, but it can be added to the fortified home, and it does help with certain insurance policies in lowering those premiums that you're going to see. The hail requirements are for a steep slope impact rated or low slope impact rated roof covering. The impact rated covering may only work for either steep or low slope, so I want to draw that to your attention. You need to be sure you're using the correct covering. Always check with the manufacturer's instructions to get that information. If you have a skylight installed, you may also need to have that skylight impact rated. If there are solar panels installed, those also have to be impact rated. IBHS did testing and rating for the asphalt shingles. For the health supplement shingles that are rated excellent or good by the IBHS, the program must be used. If you go to their website, which is ibhs.org, and there's a long website there on the screen, but you can get to it by going to ibhs.org and searching for the hail information, and it's gonna give you a list of those on their website. All roof-mounted vents installed in a home seeking a fortified home designation with a new roof must have documentation to show that they meet the requirements of standard TAS 100. Testing, that's the testing application standard. It's referenced in the Florida Building Code. The standard details the testing procedures for wind and wind-driven rain resistance, as well as wind speed resistance of soffit ventilation strips and the continuous or intermittent ventilation systems sorry, my tongue is getting tied. Installed at the roof, at the ridge area. Documentation for this requirement will most likely be accomplished by obtaining the roof compliance form, and the contractor can supply that roof compliance form for you. So I want to take a moment to talk about gable end wall vent protections. Of course, this is going to apply for the hurricane areas. They must have a permanent anchor installed, and plywood is one option to cover those gable end wall vents. It's very important, though. I want to make sure that everyone hears this, especially if you're along the hurricane regions. The covering needs to be removed when there's no imminent threat of a storm. The vent is there for a reason, for that air to circulate through. So if you leave that plywood or other material blocking that, then it could potentially lead to other issues in your home. So if there's an imminent storm coming, we want to make sure that the anchors are permanently there and that you can get that covering over, but be sure that it gets removed after the storm has passed. So those are the things that are going to cover on the fortified roof. And now we're going to move over to the fortified silver. Again, remembering to get a silver designation, all of the things that we discussed in the fortified roof also have to be done. But the fortified silver is going to address, again, those damage amplifiers. We're looking at windows and doors, garage doors. We're looking at porches and attached structures, and then bracing on the gable end where it is applicable. This slide is going to give you some of the options. There are various different types of impact rated opening protections that can be used in that hurricane area. Shutter systems, opening coverings, they can be permanent or temporary. So, you know, a shutter that closes and then opens back up on a that's permanently on the wall can be used. Corrugated metal, polycarbonate. There is a fabric material that can be used, and wood structural panels are acceptable in locations where wind speeds are below 130 miles per hour. I'm going to the next thing I'm going to show you is an animation of a garage door and what happens when the garage door breaches. There's some music that's going to play in the back, but I'm going to talk just a little bit over it. But this is a really cool animation of how important that garage door actually is. Let me hit the plate. So what you're seeing is when we keep the garage door in place, it reduces the damage from the hurricanes and the tornadoes. As that door fails and blows in, the wind rushes in and creates that pressure that makes the home basically the wall explodes and all the air continues to rush through the home. The 90% of homes that the garage door survived was found from a study. 90% of those homes had little or no damage to the home when the garage door survived. So we talked about the windows and doors. Now we're going to talk about the attached structure. Each connection on an attached structure was going to be your carports, garages, things like that. It must be strengthened in the silver level to resist wind pressures and minimize the chance that it will become another damage amplifier to the home. The connections that need to be strengthened are the rafters and trusses to the beams to the column or wall, and finally the column or wall to the foundation. It all needs to be strapped together to resist that wind. The video that I'm about to show you, it moves pretty quickly, but I want you to, the first piece of this is going to be a carport that is not attached properly. I want you to watch how quickly this damage occurs, and keep in mind as we move from this one to the next demonstration, the winds are at 80 miles an hour that are blowing on this mobile home. So immediately you see those that tin start to peel up, and then the roof of the mobile home also peels directly off. There's nothing left in place to keep the water from coming through. The Insurance Institute upped the strength of the wind to 110 miles an hour, and with a properly secured carport, you can see the difference that properly securing that made to the mobile home. The last piece of the silver is going to be the bracing for the gable ends. Any gable that is taller than 36 inches requires bracing to resist the wind pressure. Gables are able to be retrofitted in an existing home. To determine how to retrofit a gable brace, there is the 2018 International Existing Building Code Gable End Retrofit for High Wind Areas, or the 2017 Florida Building Code Chapter 17 kind of walks you through how to retrofit those braces. You can also access this information in the resources section of the fortifiedhome.org website. So here are some examples of what happens when that gable end that is over 36 inches is not braced properly. The higher that peak, you're creating more of an opportunity for that wind to cause the damage. You see that those walls, they didn't go in, they came out. So that pressure pushed those walls out. And with both of these, substantial water is going to be on the inside of that home. So that covers the fortified silver. The fortified gold, we're going to tie everything together with the fortified gold. So also keep in mind that gold has the elements of the silver and of the all of the elements of silver and all the elements of roof that play into it. But with the gold, we're looking at the continuous load path of the house. This next video that I'm going to show you is going to give you a visual of how the continuous load path works and why that continuous load path is so important. But basically what we're doing is we are tying the walls to the foundation, the first to the second floor if there is a second floor, and then we're tying the roof structure to the walls to make sure that the home stays intact when the wind happens. If wind blows against a house, it creates a complex system of forces. On the windward side, where the wind directly hits, we see a positive or pushing pressures highlighted in red. On other surfaces, especially the roof, we see negative or pulling pressures, which are highlighted in the blue. As wind speeds increase, those pressures continue to intensify. These surface pressures don't just stay where they land. Forces moving through a building by a specific, following a specific route from the top down through the structural components. This is what engineers refer to as the force path. Understanding this pathway is very essential. The key to preventing failures along this force path is proper connections. Starting at the top, shingles need more nails to stay secure during high winds. The roof deck itself below requires additional nails, which we address with a ring shank to maintain its integrity. Moving further down, we need stronger connections between the roof structure and the wall structure, typically using a metal strap or clips. These connections transfer wind loads down the wall to the bottom plate, which must also be properly secured with similar hardware. It's absolutely essential to connect that bottom of the walls to the foundation in a positive way, ensuring all the forces are ultimately transmitted safely to the ground. One of the biggest vulnerabilities occurs when the building's envelope is penetrated. When openings form in the exterior caused by debris, the internal pressurization begins. Remember the positive windward pressure we discussed? Now winds enter through those openings and start inflating the house like a balloon. When the internal pressurization combines with the negative suction already pulling on the roof, the results can be catastrophic. The roof experiences forces from both below pushing up and above pulling up, which can lead to structural failure. This failure pattern becomes increasingly common as wind speeds climb higher. That proper connections that we talked about, they complete the chain that safely directs the wind to the ground of the home and then distributes it out. So the video I'm going to show you now is, and if you can hear my dog barking, my apologies. There must be a squirrel in the front yard. But the video I'm going to show you now is on the right-hand side is going to be a home that was built to the fortified standards inside of the research facility. And the multiple homes that are on the left are going to be homes that were built to local standards. And the difference in I mean, it really speaks for itself. You know, which house would you rather own, build, sell, or insure? I'm going to play this video for you because it really does speak for itself. Each of the houses that you see failing, all are going to fail in a different way. The house on the right is the same house through all of these demonstrations. Now, the important piece to keep in mind when you're looking at this is the difference in the cost of building these two houses, or this group of houses. The one on the right cost $3,000 more, but you see what the results are. That home on the right stood where the other homes failed every single time. So there's a $3,000 difference in cost. But when you're thinking about long-term, when you're thinking about your home surviving, when you're thinking about income because the home has survived and the individual who's living in it is able to have a place to live and a place to come back to, you still get the profits if you've built that home and you're renting that home out. Again, $3,000 is not a lot of money when you're looking at that difference. So let's talk for a minute about eligible dwellings. Which homes are eligible for the fortified designation? Not all are going to be eligible. It is possible for a new or existing home to get a designation. Single family detached homes, duplexes, townhouses, and manufacturers homes can qualify. A note that I want to give you about a manufactured home: they must have been built after July of 1994, must meet HUD Wind Zone 3 standards, and must be permanently secured to a foundation. However, any home on a dry stack foundation, regardless of whether it is a mobile home or not, and if it is on a dry stack foundation, it is not eligible. Again, it is not eligible if it is on a dry stack foundation. Other property types not eligible are mixed use, commercial, and multi-residential condominiums and apartments. Those are not eligible for a fortified home designation. They would fall under the multifamily or commercial fortified standards. So we're going to talk a little bit now about those ineligible foundation types. Homes on a foundation constructed of unrestrained stacked masonry or stone, which is what we call the dry stack foundation, are not eligible. Think about it like this: if you could walk up to your home and you were strong enough to pick that home up off the foundation, if you picked it up and you could kick the foundation over, that would be considered a dry stack foundation. It needs to have that mortar in it to keep that foundation secure, and a connection from the foundation to the home itself. The types of foundations that do qualify, those are going to be slab on grade, homes that are with elevated floors, not slab on grade, that have a positive connection from the floor or wall structure to the supporting foundation, including homes with crawl spaces, stem walls, and post and beam or pylons. Please remember that the HUD code manufacturer foundation also, as you're thinking through that, as it would need to be met with those mobile homes. The other piece to qualifying is for a home roof designation, and then subsequently any of the following designations, the structural members of the roof, such as the trusses or rafters, must have a minimum of 2-inch nominal thickness, be spaced no more than 24 inches on center, be sheathed with wood structural panels such as OSB or plywood, and be designed by a professional engineer to support all gravity and wind loads corresponding with the site, with the site's design wind speed, roof height, exposure category, and location of the building. The foundation and structural members of the roof are things that the fortified evaluator is going to document in a pre-inspection that is done. So what is a fortified evaluator, and how do they fit into this workflow? A fortified evaluator is a third-party independent individual whose job is to verify and document that the fortified standards are being implemented in the completion of the roof silver or the gold designation process. The fortified evaluator is the piece of this. They are a critical, and I can't stress this enough, a critical and crucial part of this process, because their documentation, their set of eyes going out and verifying that the roofer, the contractor, whomever it is that is putting that roof or building that home, that they are following the standards, that they are doing the things and meeting those requirements. That piece of it is what is key to making the insurance companies trust the fortified designation that goes along with the house. Brooke talked briefly about incentives. I'm going to throw this out there for you guys so that you kind of have an understanding. I'm going to give you some numbers based on here in Alabama. We're a little bit different here in Alabama than a lot of places are. But with a fortified designation within the state of Alabama, if you have a fortified designation for your roof and you live in one of the coastal areas, that designation can get you anywhere from a 25 to 35% discount off of your wind mitigation portion of your homeowner's insurance. If your home is built to the fortified silver level, then you're looking at 35 to 45% discount off of that wind mit insurance. And then if the home is built to the gold standards, then you're looking at up to a 55% discount off of homeowners insurance. There are other states where insurance companies offer the discount, and there are lots of insurance companies that also offer that discount. If you're in one of those states that it's not necessarily right here along the coast, then it's a good idea if you want to check with your insurance company and see if they have anything if they have any kind of discounts that go along with it. If you're looking at doing this process, but those insurance companies, what's key is the work that this fortified evaluator does in collecting the documentation. So let's kind of talk through the process of getting a designation in place. The designation process involves these steps that we're about to go over. The evaluator is involved in every step along the way. When the process starts to get your roof or your home designated, the homeowner should contact an evaluator before the project begins. Once the eligibility of the home, they come out and they check for the foundation. They make sure that all of the rafters and trusses are spaced correctly. All the things up there are in place. Once that has been determined, the build or the re-roof process can begin. The roofer or contractor will then start to build a roof structure and make it and have the process go through the designation requirements, where the evaluator comes out. As the work is going on, they're taking pictures, and we're going to talk about all the different documentation, but they're gathering all that documentation to be able to submit that documentation over to IBHS. So the evaluator gathers the documentation, they submit it over to IBHS. The IBHS team then looks at the documentation and they verify that all of the information is there to the satisfaction of the standards. And then at that point, a certificate is issued for the home. That certificate is sent to the evaluator, who then turns around and passes that certificate on to the homeowner. So the types of documentation that are collected, generally speaking, this means photographs of various phases of the construction process, as well as taking photos of the materials and the products used. Those photographs are used to prove that the fortified requirements have been met. In addition to the photographs, they will gather certified testing reports and/or like the manufacturer's installation instructions, and any fortified compliance forms that the roofer or the contract needs to fill out. Once the fortified evaluator has all of that, they send it over. If the submittal meets the requirements, again, the fortified home standards, they're going to issue the certificate, and that certificate is going to be sent back. If the submittal does not meet the requirements to the fortified home standards, the evaluation and the documentation are returned with what they call a report of issue. The corrections to the documentation or to the home can then be made, and then the evaluation can be resubmitted for it to be reviewed a second time. So you're looking at an example of the certificate. So some key elements here for the certificate. It is transferable between homeowners. So if you have a fortified roof put on your home, and then let's say in 6 months, a year, you decide to sell that home. When you sell that home, that certificate is going to go with the new homeowner. Research done by the University of Alabama a few years back showed that having a fortified roof or a fortified designation on your home could potentially increase the value of that home by up to 7%. Just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through here. The fortified designation is valid for a 5-year period. After that 5-year period, redesignation would be necessary. So after 5 years, the designation process, the redesignation process, it's put into place there for a couple of reasons. One, we want to be able to continue to help you get those discounts off of your homeowner's insurance if that is applicable in your area. But two, we want to make sure that the roof has the shingles still has enough life left on those shingles to cover the next 5 years before the next designation needs to be done, and also to make sure that there have been no major changes that have been completed on the home. And when I say major changes, I'm meaning anything like additional construction without an evaluator being involved. So that redesignation process is important because it proves that that roof is still going to give you the protection that you need. The inspection focuses on the roof covering and any substantial changes to the roof system covering. Under the fortified program, a redesignation is not automatic. There are some things that could make the home ineligible. A fortified evaluator should always be consulted on any work that is done to the exterior of your home. Not every job will need the evaluator to be involved in the process, but many of them will. The additions to the home, if you add a room onto your home, if you enclose or add, carports or a garage to the home, if you are re-roofing or there's been some sort of damage and you had to repair the roof in some way, replacing any windows and doors, adding a doggy door, those could affect if you have a silver or a gold designation on your home. And then if you install solar panels, all of these things can be done. I want to be sure that I point that out. If you have a designation, all of these things can be done, but that evaluator being in the process is going to make sure that the roofer, the contractor, whoever's installing those solar panels, that they are gathering the documentation to show that it was done correctly. So currently you do not have to be certified through IBHS to install a fortified roof, but that is going to change in November of 2025 when the updated standards take effect. It's best to go ahead and get, if you are interested in this, or you have someone that you use as a contractor, home builder, roofer, we are happy to talk to them and talk them through the process of getting designated or certified as a fortified roofer or professional. Again, coming up in 2025, that will be a requirement. A lot of the programs, or a lot of the states that have grant programs that are active, those states require that whoever is participating in that program, that those generally require that they have that certification, that they've taken the classes through IBHS and the fortified program. But again, it's not a requirement right now, but as of November of this year, it will be. You can go to IBHS's website or to Smart Home America's website, and there is a link up at the top that is going to say Find a Professional. When you click on that link, you're going to find a list, kind of breaks it down. You can choose whether you're looking for an evaluator, a roofer, or a professional. You can pick your state. I want to also point out right now that as a fortified evaluator, those individuals have to take the training through IBHS if you want to be an evaluator. Again, the roofer, contractor, professional, not right now, but as November you will. But if you are an evaluator, it is a requirement that you take the class and pass the test. So the professional experience that's required, certified, licensed, or registered general contractor, residential contractor, builder, unlicensed residential contractor with minimum 5 years of supervisor capacity, architects, engineers, ICC certified building code officials, residential code inspectors, home inspectors. All of those people are great candidates to be a fortified evaluator. Again, those individuals can reach out to us if they're having some questions or want more information about how to become. Other people who can qualify to be a fortified evaluator, anyone who has a minimum of 1 year experience working with a certified fortified home evaluator and who has completed a minimum of 100 designations. Energy raters also have the also meet the requirements to be able to get the certifications to do fortified inspections. Just some general information about the insurance that is required if you are a home evaluator. You got to have the general liability of $1 million, automobile liability up to $500,000, workman's comp if it is required by law in your state, employer liability and professional liability is strongly recommended. So just a screenshot of the Fortified website. If you look in the upper right hand corner, that's where that Find a Professional link is going to be. The Fortified online training, so the classes that are needed to become certified, whether it be for the roofing, contracting professional, the evaluator, all of those can be found directly on the fortifiedwise.com. But you can also get to those through the page that I just showed you. There is a link there to get to that fortifiedwise.com, but this one's just going to take you directly to it. The Fortified program, we have spent a lot of time today talking about the Fortified Home Standards, but I do want to just briefly mention the commercial and the multifamily. They do have standards for both. We're looking at a picture here of, this is 2 apartments complexes that went through Hurricane Ida. These 2 are down in Louisiana. They are less than a mile from each other as far as walking distance. You can walk from one of these complexes to the other. They were built by the same contractor built them. The one on the left was built 3 years prior to the one on the right. The one on the right had not opened yet. They were just short of completing all of the work that needed to be done when Hurricane Ida came through. But the hurricane coming through, it delayed the process of getting those homes opened. It only delayed it by 3 weeks. Again, same person built these homes less than a mile apart, so they both took the hit of the same wind speeds, the same structural damage. The one on the left obviously was not inhabitable. Building that is on the left, fortunately, because the one on the right was only delayed by 3 weeks, some of those folks were able to move from that complex over to the other. If you're really paying attention, you'll notice that the air conditioner unit on the right hand side is kind of out in the front yard. That's not normally where the air conditioner unit goes, but the reason for that being there, it is addressed in the Fortified standards. The reason it is there is because they had not reached that stage in the build process yet of anchoring it. Those were the types of things that kind of pushed them back a little bit, that they had to go back and complete. More of a completion, not so much a redo, just more of a completion that happened there. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm not sure if Julie is on the call or not, but if I'm not mistaken, the funds that were used on the home on the right came out of the Fortified Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas program, and this was the first commercial that was done that way. So when a structure is being looked at for the fortified commercial or multifamily, there are still those 3 levels of roof, silver, and gold, but there's only the wind is the only standard there, but we still have in that high wind, we still have the roof, silver, and gold. With the roof, of course, we're going to keep the roof on, the water out, and the roof deck in place. With the silver, we're looking at the same things that we're looking at, just in a little bit different manner. They have to be looked at. And then with the gold, we're looking at, there have to be, with silver, there have to be the electrical connections for backup power. But with the gold, we're also adding in that the power for critical utilities has to be in place. But we're looking at that continuous load path on the gold as well. For the evaluation process for a commercial multifamily, we're looking at a little bit different process. We talked about the evaluators on the single family, and again, those evaluators could live next door to you. It could be someone that that you've had other interactions with in your community. But with the commercial multifamily, we're looking at an application process. So the first thing that happens before any kind of build is done, an application is submitted. to IBHS through the Fortified Multifamily website, and that is going to start the process, kicking off the process of getting that building certified. They then work with there are evaluators involved, but there are specific evaluators that are put into place with these types of builds. It's not just the home evaluator. It's someone, an engineering firm who specializes in this type of construction that gets involved with it. Go through the process is the same as far as the evaluator comes out, or the evaluating company comes out, documents, takes the pictures, helps along the way to make sure that everything is being done properly. And then the IBHS issues a fortified multifamily certificate that goes along with that structure. So that is the end of our formal presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so I can pull faces back up. That is the end of our formal presentation. Graham, do we have any questions that have come in that need to be addressed? Graham?
Hey Candace, we had a few questions come in and they've been answered
Okay.
so far. So if folks have any other questions, please throw those in the Q&A and we'll be happy to answer them.
Those can go for either myself or for Brooke. Just because I've been talking for what feels like forever, we can get some of those questions from the beginning as well if there are any. It's a lot of information that we dumped at you in a very, I mean, I know we've been on for about an hour and a half now, but a lot of information dropped in a short period of time, a lot of things to digest. We are here to answer any of those questions now. Graham, if you'll drop into the Q&A my contact information, I'm also here to help along the way, answer any questions that you have. Happy to do that. If you'll reach out to me, happy to do that.
Candace, it's Raquel, and I did have a quick question for you. And you mentioned a lot about the manufactured homes, and we've been seeing, of course, the more activity in offsite factory built homes or modular homes as well. Does that follow the same recommendations that you mentioned for manufactured housing, or is it a little bit different? Um,
So
3D homes is another one that's not at a big scale yet, but wanted to throw that in there as well. If any of these new sort of innovative ways to get to the housing supply would be impacted by anything you could mention or recommend.
So it's not impossible to get a modular home, a tiny home, all those types. It's not impossible to do that. The standards are there as long as the standards are met. Then those homes can get to that designation. As far as the 3D printed, I'm going to be full transparency. If you know me more than 5 minutes, you know that when I don't know the answer to something, I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer to that. I would assume that is going to be something that the folks at IBHS or the Insurance Institute have on their radar, but I don't know how far along they are in coming up with the answers to that. With the fact that it is, the 3D printed, I know when a concrete home, a ICF home, those homes absolutely can qualify for the fortified standards from gold all the way to roof all the way to gold. Those homes can meet those requirements. There are standards to help along the way with those things. So I would venture to say, Graham just popped in with a answer down here. Let me see what Graham had to say. Yes, 3D printed homes can meet the fortified.
Awesome.
That one for me. Thank you, Graham. I appreciate the teamwork there.
Thank you.
Then Candace, we had Emily Palmer in the Q&A. Could someone be an evaluator on the side if their full-time job is roofing, but not evaluating for their own clients, just completely unaffiliated ones?
Absolutely. If you are evaluating, if you are a roofer and you are evaluating homes that you did not put the roof on or you did not build, there is absolutely no conflict of interest there. The ones that you were involved with, of course, you could not evaluate, but 100% that is absolutely possible. Anyone else?
And then Graham is working on typing an answer. But Anna Keene asked, are any of the fortified incentives at risk due to changes at the federal level? Most of the grant programs that I mentioned earlier are done at the state level. So the changes at the federal level would not affect those. You can talk to your local legislators about that. The Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas, I'm not 100% sure if their programming will be affected. We haven't heard anything from them yet. But as Graham mentioned, incentives are typically done at the state level.
And I spoke with someone at Federal Home Loan Bank last week about an unrelated, and as of last week, there was no mention when I was on the phone call with the gentleman at Federal Home Loan Bank. The date for that to be launched is April the 15th, and that has not changed as of a conversation I believe last Friday. Graham just dropped in the comments, slated to launch in April. I believe it's the 15th, with 10 million in funding, more than double what they had last year. The way that Federal Home Loan Bank, if you are in those one of those states that can take advantage of that, they're going to do it in two different releases. They're going to drop the funds and work through those, and then once those funds have been exhausted, then start another round of it. But again, that is going to be for New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. So if you are building there, the grant, the funds, if it is a re-roof, then you can get up to $15,000 of the re-roof to go towards the cost of re-roof. If it is a build from a brand new build, then there's the potential for $10,000 to go towards that piece of it. The keys to that, though, is that you have to get that fortified designation, and there are some income qualifications as far as how much you can make to be able to qualify for those. Off the top of my head, I do not know what those numbers exactly are, but there are some requirements there. You can go to the Federal Home Loan Bank website, and it's going to lay all that information for you out there. The states, most of the states have the grant programs that, like here in the state of Alabama, it's $10,000 towards mitigating your roof to the fortified standards. Graham says based on the HUD median income, that's going to be 120%. But you know, the $10,000 to go towards the cost of that replacement mitigation of the roof. We do have Louisiana, who is up and running and has been for a while. Oklahoma has just at the beginning of this month started a program in kind of a pilot program in some specific areas. So if you're in Oklahoma, you want to check out the Oklahoma Department of Insurance website to see if you are in one of those areas. But they are releasing that, and they are kind of phasing that to where they're expanded over the course of the next few quarters to allow for other areas in the state of Oklahoma. Mississippi is in the process of getting a grant program up and running. Kentucky is not far behind. So there are lots of options that are out there for grant programs, but those are state specific. And there are some requirements there within the state that you have to kind of check each individual state. If you go to the smarthome.org, smarthomeamerica.org website, at the top of our website, there is a link that will bring you to a mitigation map. With that mitigation map, the states that are highlighted in green, if you click on your specific state, if it's highlighted in green, then we have some more direct information that will lead you to some resources for your specific state. There are some states on there that are not highlighted green. But if we can help you in any way, try to find something. Again, Graham has dropped my direct number and my email address into the link. And we will be happy to do what we can to assist in that area as well. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, issues, concerns? Anything I can address for you guys? All right, so here in just a few minutes, once the Zoom concludes, there's going to be a survey that should automatically pop up for you guys. If you wouldn't mind, take a moment and answer those survey questions. They help us out in the long run. We appreciate your time, appreciate your attention, your questions, your compassion, and your concern, and your desire to make a difference. We appreciate all of those things. Raquel, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. This has been incredible. It does not feel like almost 2 hours, just so you know. It was really, really informative. Uh, I just wanted to follow up for those that are on the training webinar today. For if you know of any others in your network that need to hear this, please be mindful that this is a training series. So our next training is taking place on April the 3rd. It will be more around the wildfires, high wind, and we're rotating these. So you'll get a chance to come back to what we went over today on April the 10th. And then we'll end back with fire again on April 30th. We have it in our email distribution list, so you'll just be aware that you'll probably see the invitations for those new events coming up over the next few weeks. But once again, thank you to the Smart Home America team, and thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it. Have a good day. Thanks.